Aaron Bielner, and Eric B. And you're listening to the Diary of a Little Man's Podcast. All right, another episode of the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast. Sorry we've been out for a while. There's some things that happened, but we are back. We're back in full strength. We're going to talk about issues, accountability, and just the daily things that a little man has to go through. So,
yeah,
Aaron, I missed you.
I missed you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I wish I stayed at the Overlooked Hotel and, go from there.
Yeah, right.
I'm in gloomy San Francisco, so I'll have to deal with it.
Is it hot in San Fran? Is it hot?
This is what we call earthquake weather, and usually we don't have this weather till about October, where it's muggy, but it's overcast. So it's like, it's warm, but it's not. So it's kind of like annoying because it's like, do I wear a long sleeve? Do I wear shorts? It's kind of one of those weathers, but it is what it is, I guess, right?
Yeah.
San Francisco.
Atlanta is we're having the heat as we usually do. It's August. August is on average usually the hottest and stickiest month. We're getting these unbelievable, very fast, very ferocious electrical storms.
Oh, yeah, I heard about
yesterday. It hasn't done this in a while, but yesterday, lightning crack after lightning crack, power go out, power come back in. Within seconds, power go out, power come back in. I will say our dog was losing it.
Yeah, man.
Kirby was hiding behind the chair that I'm sitting in. Then that wouldn't be enough for a minute. He'd run over to a corner. He kept going back and forth in between my significant other and I. He was looking at us like, is there anything you can do? Can you give me a sedative? Knock me out. What are you going to do here? And so it was, we're getting a lot of those. We're getting, and just really quick rainfalls. I have to share this story. I just thought of it, actually. So T, my significant other, she thinks someday, which I totally disagree with, that we're going to get a cat. And we're not, because I don't want a cat, and nothing against cats. I just don't want one. We have a dog, and I'm good with that.
That's all it is.
But anyway, she was gone last week on a trip, and my daughter was with Sienna. My daughter was here with me, and it was raining. One of these gully washers. Did I just say that? I said gully washer.
Yeah.
There you go. One of these gully washers. And she's outside with Kirby, our dog, to take him outside. And she comes back in and she goes, Dad, there's this little baby kitten out by this tree stump. We have a tree we chopped down years ago because it was dilapidated. Anyway, there's a baby kitten. I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to get it for, she calls T Miss T, which is sweet. But anyway, I'm going to save it for Miss T. And I'm like,
no, you're not.
No, we're not doing that. No, Dad, I have to. This poor thing's going to drown. So she goes back out there, and I'm like, do not bring that cat in this house.
Yeah.
Don't bring the cat in the house. I'm old school. I've told you this. I was raised on a farm. I have a lot of my mother's upbringing with don't bring that animal in my house. You bring the animal in my house, then they think they live here. Then they're never going to leave. Don't bring that animal in my house. Well, lo and behold, she goes out there thinking she's going to, make friends with this kitten, and she screams and runs back in the house. And I'm like, what? She goes, I got to get my phone. I'm like, why? She goes, I'm going to take a picture. I got to show you. So I'm thinking, oh, cat's dead.
Yeah.
Just, disformed, whatever. I mean, I'm going a little too farm Cujo with this.
Yeah.
It was a raccoon.
Oh, no.
Wow. It was a baby raccoon.
Okay.
I'm like, you're not bringing that in my home.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I'm not going to touch it. I said, no, you don't, because they don't understand that, that's a live animal or live animal. Of course it was live. Wild animal. You try to touch that thing, it's going to maul you. It's going to bite your fingers off, whatever exaggeration I could use to convince my daughter to not touch this raccoon. But it was a little baby raccoon. So I'm like, just leave that thing. And it was there for the longest time. I almost think it got waterlogged. I think, the rain came down. It found a place to hide for a bit. And then finally, after it realized, hey, the tides have gone down, if you will, I can roll out. But that's, our dog was going nuts because every time she took the dog out, of course, it could smell that little thing hiding under that
Oh,
basement.
wow.
And so I'm like, oh, geez. So yeah, that's my story of the kitten turned raccoon. Yeah, when she screamed, I thought, oh God, what the heck? Because I was inside and I was like, what happened? Please tell me she's okay. And
Yeah, yeah.
and then she's like, I gotta get my phone. And I'm like, yeah, which is the typical teenager,
Of course.
don't just leave the thing alone. We're gonna go out and take a picture of it. We gotta take a picture of it.
I'm more disappointed she didn't have her phone out with her when she
And
walked
so
out.
she did.
Right?
Yeah, well, yeah, right. But I was like, when it's raining and stuff, and she's tending, Kirby is my daughter's like 3'8", and Kirby's like 38 pounds.
Mm.
So I want to make sure, and we have, and I'm telling you probably more than you ever want to know. We have a decent amount of wildlife in this
Of
backyard,
course,
and
yeah.
so deer will show up at times. We just had a beautiful doe and a fawn show up a few days ago. It's
Nice.
just awesome. We've had fox. We've had um, wild turkey. We've had wild turkey.
Wow.
We have had geese. We find turtles every once in a while. Turtles will be in and out of the area. We've had copperheads, if that's not a little
Ooh,
alarming.
yeah.
We've had copperhead. Yeah. Not like copperheads are, yes, they're venomous, but on average, they're not aggressive. And so I've worked in landscaping and seen copperheads in this area before. But if you don't like go after them,
Yeah.
they'll leave you alone. And they
Yeah.
don't like agitation. They don't like vibration. So like here, if I'm going out in the backyard to mow and I run the mower a couple times just on the ground, that vibration, if they're around, that sends them away. They'll go. So I'm not so much worried about that. But yeah, I didn't know what she was going to take a picture of and then when she showed me, I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, you thought that was a kitten.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anywho, but yeah, that's my Mutual of Omaha
Story
Marlon
of the day.
Perkins backyard story.
We're 6 minutes in and we didn't get this started. Let's go ahead and get this started.
Holy Christmas. Let's go. Sorry.
I'm
I
Eric
just told
B.
you this.
That's all right. I'm Eric B.
I'm Aaron Billner, the one who talks too much.
And you're listening to the Diary of the Little Man's podcast. No, that was a great story. I have a story to piggyback off that, and it's going to be short.
Go for it.
My coworker missed work because she had to get rabies shots. And I said, what happened? And, same situation your daughter was in. My daughter was outside in the backyard and, she kept coming in and out. Oh, I got to give this kitty cat some food. And I'm like, oh, it's a kitty cat. And, the mom was like, thought nothing of it because there's cats that roams around the neighborhood a lot, right? So this is outside of San Francisco. This is like, I want to say almost in the farmlands part of the Bay Area. And then she's like, wondering what's taking my daughter so long. So she goes out there. She has this big scream. The husband comes running out. The daughter has a laceration in the face, and she has a laceration in the arm. And come to find out, the cat was a lynx. It was not a cat. It was a lynx. And
yikes.
Yeah. So right away, the husband was like, we got to take you to the ER. We got to get you some rabies shots. So yeah, it was one of those situations where the little girl didn't know the difference between a lynx
and a domestic cat.
Yeah. And the funny thing was the lynx was doing well till the mom came out. And I guess when the mom came out, the mom was a little more aggressive and then scratched the girl and scratched her. Yeah. So
are they okay?
Yeah, they're okay. She's like, I had to stay home from work because rabies injections are really painful.
They are. Yeah. Are they still, from what I understand, they're in the stomach. Are they still in the stomach?
I didn't ask.
Yeah, from what I understand, they give them in that was a thing when, and I'm sorry, but you opened a can of worms with this, and not to overscore this story because that's serious. I'm glad they're okay, but living on the farm, that isn't while you had stray dogs show up, whatever, and rabies was real. I mean that was a real deal.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched The Office when they did with Michael Scott, and they did that stupid rabies run, and he's like, myth. Rabies affects 3 Americans every year. And then he's like, fact, rabies affects 4 Americans every year or something ridiculous like that. But yeah, we were always, when we were kids, we were always like taught or scared that, God, if you get bit and you get rabies, you got to have 7 shots in the stomach. So that was always, I know it really hurts.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, I'm glad they're doing all right. Can you see this? I want to see if you can see this. Can you see him?
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely a raccoon.
That's the little raccoon by the pot on the stump.
She thought that was a cat?
Yeah, I'm saying it's a he. I don't know. I'm I mean, I couldn't identify
Yeah.
a raccoon by gender. I don't know what it is. Anyway,
But
could be a male,
she
female.
thought that
I don't
was a
know.
cat. She thought that was a little
Well,
kitten.
because it had turned, I don't have the other picture. I wish I had the first picture. The first picture was just its backside. It had turned into the bowl. So
Okay.
it did look like a little gray cat. And then when she came back out, it had turned and put its face out, and
Got
she
it.
screamed. And I'm glad, luckily, she didn't touch the dang thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, don't mess with T is like T's attitude is if you see a raccoon, it means it has rabies, which
Yeah.
is totally untrue. That's not true. Okay. I wouldn't like approach it and try to make friends with the animal, but every raccoon you see out in public or out in daylight
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're rabid. Okay. And so that's her go-to. T's go-to is in order to make the kids and grandkids, whatever, they've got rabies.
Yeah.
It's got rabies. Don't touch it. It's got rabies. Don't even get in the same yard. It's got rabies.
Yeah.
Get in the car and drive off up into the hills. It's got rabies.
It gets rabies.
Like, it doesn't have rabies.
That's how we are in San Francisco. I mean, we see them running around wild, and they're here looking for food. And the first thing we think of is
food. They're scavenging.
Yeah, the first thing we think of is like, don't let them.
No, they're hungry.
They have rabies.
If you're seeing them in the city, they're trying to find a dumpster.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's what they're going for.
Absolutely. They don't care about you, and they're not going to go after you unless you encroach on them and make them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They want food.
They want food. Exactly.
That's it. But yeah. So anyway, we ran that gamut. No, I wanted to address, well, one, we haven't seen each other. You've been going your way. I've been going my way. It's been crazy. There's been 8 zillion things in the news since we last spoke.
Yeah.
And it really, you know what it really makes me question? Well, it poses this question to me, Eric, is what's real anymore?
Yeah.
What is legitimate anymore?
Yeah.
Nobody's accountable for anything. People are doing stuff and I guess I have, not to go on a personal beef, but I do have a personal beef about it's crazy what certain people can do and get away with.
Yeah.
And then a different demographic or a different, gender or size, shape, whatever you want to say. I keep bumping this. I'm sorry. Says, does the same thing. And it's a much greater offense.
Yeah.
We're and I feel for this person, this WNBA player. Stop it. My computer's spinning. This Brittany Griner.
Yeah.
Just this past week is spending, well, of course they should appeal it. They are appealing it. 9.5-year sentence for what she, there was an offense there. I understand that.
Yeah.
But there's an article, and I don't remember the exact name, but same type of offense in the same country. Light fine, slap on the wrist.
Yep.
See you later.
Yep.
What is going on? Why are we still in 2022, Eric? Why are we still dealing with such inequalities?
It's, that's a good question to ask. And I work in an industry where we're, men and women, we consider each other equal. But then every now and then I'll hear one of the ladies go, "Hey, can you pick this up? Because it's too heavy for me." It's like, well, aren't we supposed to be equal? Because you guys they throw the equal stuff around all the time till it comes to stuff that they don't want to do. And that's the thing that annoys me. And we're going through this thing at work right now where somebody is actually taking another department, not my department, into some kind of civil lawsuit because of the same situation that we're talking about. Like, why is the males getting all the easy work and the females, just stuff like that. But why, the question why is, I don't know. I mean, I think there's 2 sides to every story, and we try to nip things in the bud. And, I'm one of those guys that definitely tiptoes around everything that I know that I can get in trouble for if I say or do something. So I just don't do it,
Yeah. There is a level. And again, my intention is to never be offensive, of course. My intention is to be as empathetic and open-minded as possible. I think that I hope that's everyone's intention. And yet we do say, we do things that aren't necessarily, the best choice, or we make statements that aren't very well thought out. And so there is a level of hesitancy.
Yeah.
it feels like, and again, not to carry, I'm not trying to sound like the broken record or the chip on the shoulder, but it seems like there are certain people who can say and do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And there's no consequence. There's no, repercussion. And then you have certain people who, I mean, you would have swore they killed 40 people, and they have much greater, consequence and discipline. And again, I'm all about adequate, not to sound too, Dostoevsky, but I'm all about adequate punishment for adequate
Yeah.
crime. If we don't have that, then we're going to be in like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
I get that. It's just, it seems like in our society, it's 2022, and we still have amazing amounts of favoritism.
Yeah.
Amazing amounts of favoritism.
Yeah.
And so, go through the political gamut, there are people in political positions, and I'm not going to name anything specifically, but there are, because, I'm not into, okay, well, you think this way, I think that way. But there are people that have done things in political positions that would have spent 10 to 15 years in prison.
Yeah.
They were just a civilian.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like amazing.
But let me ask you this. Do you think this all started up again? Because we went through this in the 30s and 40s and 50s where, only certain types of people can vote. Only certain type of people have a voice. That kind of, with the 60s, the flowers, the whole thing, that kind of like people ended up getting their voice. Do you think this all started up again when that certain person was in the White House for the past 4 years?
I think that to be fair, because I've actually thought about that a lot lately.
Yeah.
I think it, I don't know if and I'm not trying to hem-haw or be on the fence. I want to be, straight with my convictions. It didn't help it. It definitely didn't help it.
Yeah.
It definitely exposed, my attitude exposed a lot of how people think.
Yeah.
That I didn't know they thought that way, and I thought we were much more ahead than we actually are.
Yeah.
Let's go. If we're going to go there, let's go there. The whole situation with Roe versus Wade, and I'm going to make it personal. I'm going to make it personal in a form of I'm a man. I mean, me to tell a woman what to do with her body seems ridiculously preposterous.
Yeah.
But let's go into that as a little person. Okay. And my second daughter is our biological daughter. Our first daughter we adopted and are absolutely elated to have a part of our family. She's from Russia, actually. She's from just north of Moscow, about 150 miles. Okay. But we did have a daughter biologically in my first marriage. And there is a concern. We've addressed this, but I want to highlight it for the point of Roe v. Wade. There's a 1 in 4 chance, which is pretty high odds.
Yeah.
25% when you're thinking about death and mortality is pretty high odds. If it was 1 out of 1,000, that's not as bad. 1 out of 4.
Yeah.
That child will have what's called double dominance, because my dominant gene for the type of dwarfism and the mother's dominant gene mix.
Okay.
And if the two dominants mix, the child does not survive more often than not in the womb or in utero, let alone shortly after birth.
Wow. Okay.
They die. The nervous system doesn't develop. Things don't happen the way they should, and they can't make it. So to think that in that, and I think we've addressed a little bit in a previous show, to think that if that happens, unfortunately, to have to carry, I wouldn't wish that on any person. I wouldn't wish that. I mean, for a woman to have to carry that pregnancy full term, and then knowing that it's not going to work is emotionally devastating. And the reason I bring any of that up is the fact that I think a lot of what we do now, or what's happening now, is purely based on money and power.
That's all it is.
It has nothing to do with equality.
It's a business.
It has nothing to do with rights. And nothing's fair on this planet. I heard actually Matthew McConaughey give a commencement speech once, and he goes, "Life's not fair.
Yeah.
It's never going to be fair. Nothing's fair." And it isn't. Life isn't fair, and it's never going to be that, and it's unrealistic to think that. But when you're talking about simple rights and privileges for a human being, and that in 2022, it has more to do with money than it has to do with anything else.
It's business. Yeah.
It's a business. That's alarming.
Yeah.
It's really alarming. You talk about, women's right to vote, and it feels like we're back 100 years
Yeah.
than we are now. I mean, yeah, it's crazy that we're even talking about this. It's crazy that this is where we're sitting, and we're seeing states. The Kansas, did their thing this past week. Indiana is now going, nope, we're going to do it this way. It's going to be, it's oh God, it's a can of worms that.
What surprises me the most is the fact that this was even brought up, and the fact that this was brought up, this was voted on, and this was passed. We're gonna reverse RVD, what we call RVW, we call it work, and the fact that there's females that's part of the Supreme Court that could have easily just said, no, we're not going to do this. But the fact that it even passed, to me, where we are right now as humans, and to see what they went through before Roe versus Wade had to go through with all the illegal abortions, they called, you, Aaron, you and I know the coat hanger abortions is what they called it back in the days. Right. For that to still play in people's mind, like, hey, I can't keep this, but my state won't allow me to get an abortion. I got raped by somebody. I mean, I don't even know where to begin on this. I mean, this is like
I know, and even go past. I mean, and not underscoring this, the fact that if a rape happens at all, how horrific and barbaric and frightening to the victim, and then let alone have to then go, all right, I have this, and again, rape is, to me, rape is not the only reason to even consider Roe v. Wade. Rape is horrific in its own form and fashion, no question about it. But for a woman, and again, I'm speaking as an observer, for a woman to have to be subjected to that emotional and mental torment after that horrible act of rape is unbelievable to me. I don't get where we are so proud to say that this country is about individuals and about individual rights and about the fact that you can profess your, whatever you want to practice in religion, that's your business.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to practice in your home, as long as it's not hurting children and others, that's your business. And yet now we're saying, no, it's not. It's not your business. We're going to tell you how to do it because we're all, we feel that this abortion is murder. It's absolutely alarming to me that our individual rights are disintegrating one by one. And the idea of this being a real, genuine democracy.
Yeah, it's not.
And again, I have to look at this, not just as a human being, but as a person, a little person, and go, we have extenuating circumstances ourselves that who the hell is to tell me or the woman who has to deal with these extenuating circumstances. You have no idea what is all involved.
Yeah,
this is so much more subjective than we're allowing. I guess now we're going back to a herd mentality of, hey, it's either all or nothing, and if you don't, tough.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, so be it. This is what we're doing. It's very authoritarian. It's alarming. And again, Roe v. Wade just being one instance of this. It's and being in an entertainment world where there are so many stories that have come out of that, of how people have treated others and acted and done
because of their belief of what they thought.
Yeah, right. And lewd and indecent things to others based on, they figured, hey, I can do whatever I want, and if you have a problem with it, so what?
Yeah.
That's really frightening, Eric.
But let me touch on that. You as an actor, because I've read not just the political thing about Roe versus Wade, but I've heard things in the past where you had a certain president that I support in the White House, or they support in the White House. That kind of reflects on actors also, because it's like, wait, why do you support him? And then now we're going through this whole vax versus non-vax. Like, you have certain actors who don't want to get vaccinated. just to help the show. And like you said, you're right. What are you going to do about it? If I don't want to get vaccinated, I'm not going to get vaccinated. So as an entertainer, you're here to entertain, which I get. I would just keep the political stuff out. It's like, hey, if this person doesn't want to get vaccinated, try to find a way to shoot this there or him or hers scene without everybody else around. Or
it's challenging. That's a challenge. I mean, that would be, try to make that happen.
Yeah.
But ultimately, and again, I agree. I totally respect what you're saying. It's almost impossible because you have, in order to shoot, people think, what's in front of the camera is the most important thing. Well, if you weren't behind the camera, what's in front of the camera wouldn't matter. Yeah. There is a large crew behind the camera.
Yeah.
If you were to say, all right, this person doesn't want to be vaccinated, so we're going to do that person's stuff individually. Oh, that'd be a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be, scenes. If you would have to double shoot and overlay and editing where, okay, we've got this person who doesn't want to vaccinate. They're individual. Okay. It's their right. I get that. I respect it's their right. But then in that instance, what they choose not to do for themselves can ultimately affect others. We're seeing numbers go up in COVID, cases and now exposures, and we've got a new variant every other day.
Yeah.
And again, we have now, I mean, I'm getting audition notices that say, if you're not vaccinated and you can't prove that, then we unfortunately cannot, cast you because we can't take that risk. Yeah. We can't take that chance. And again, you're entitled to not vaccinate.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That doesn't mean you're entitled to impose what you do on others or don't do on others. And that's a really sticky fine line.
Yeah. And the big picture is, and I understand both sides of the story, but the big picture is you're a family man. You don't want to go to an audition and find out, actor A wasn't vaccinated and you were in the room with this person for an hour and a half, unmasked, not vaccinated. Now you got to come home with your family, find out 3 days later, actor A tested positive. And now you have to figure out what you're going to do, the things that runs in your head, like how long was I hanging out with my wife and kids? Let me go isolate myself. There's just, it's that part of just generosity of what people needs to figure out again. Like, okay,
I agree.
If I'm not going to test or if I'm not going to get vaccinated, let me at least make sure the people that I work with is going to be safe around me.
That's the thing. That's it. It does require the person to be as objective and as, I use this word so much, empathetic as possible to go, it isn't just about me.
Yeah.
It's beyond me. Do my actions ultimately affect another person or persons? And do they affect them in a positive way? If it's not, if it's something that could harm or hinder any other party besides myself, then I should be cognitive of that and reflective of that. It's, to me, again, not to dwell on the fact that it's 2022, it blows me away that we're not on average doing that. We're very selfish.
Yeah.
On average, we're very selfish. It doesn't bother me, or I don't care. That's fine. It doesn't have to bother you. You don't have to care about it. But if it's affecting someone beyond you, then you're being extremely selfish and self-absorbed.
And I'm gonna, since we're in this whole politic thing that we're talking about, what got me this week was, I'm not gonna mention his name, but that talk show host that just got sued by the family of the Sandy Hook.
Oh Lord, yeah.
How he kept saying it was a hoax and it wasn't real. It was all for social media. I'm sitting here as a parent, sitting on my side, thinking like, what the hell were you watching? Thinking this whole thing was a hoax, and then
how insensitive.
The audacity of you to come on your talk show host and share it with the rest of the world, saying that this was fake, this wasn't real. Kids died, young innocent kids that didn't really know, life yet. They're still experiencing the life experience, died, and you're going to sit here as an adult grown man and say it was fake.
I've read a bunch about that whole case, and again, you're a parent, I'm a parent. I think the word, well, I know, and it hasn't happened, and knock on wood, and the powers that be, I don't ever want it to happen. I think every parent wants to go out before their child does. You don't ever want to lose a child,
Yeah.
and the devastation of that alone,
Yeah.
I don't ever. I mean, I offer hugs and love to all of the poor parents, whether it be Sandy Hook, whether it be Uvalde,
Yeah.
that have lost children, and just the absolute sheer horror of that notion, let alone having to live through it. And then if you do have to, unfortunately and horrifically live through it, now somebody's insulting you about it.
Yeah.
Somebody's making light of it.
Yeah.
Geez, I mean, good God, how insanely callous and insanely insensitive
Yeah.
for
I mean,
anybody
that's pretty much what
say,
it is. Insensitive.
oh, it was a hoax.
Yeah. It wasn't
Hey,
real.
you want to say that we didn't land on the moon? That was a hoax? Okay, say that.
That's fine.
You want to say that, boba tea is the worst thing you've ever drank? Then say that. That's fine.
Yeah.
What does that hurt? But to sit there and I know that's a weird example. I don't know why I brought up boba tea. I'm not against boba tea. People who love it, go for it. But you're taking what's already a really ghastly thing, and you're making so light of it. God,
Yeah.
I can't fathom as a parent. I can't.
No, I can't either. Yeah.
It would make me sick to go. Not only have I lost my child, but somebody thinks it's a game. It's a joke.
Yeah. I mean, that's what gets me is the fact that he said it after, and there was already proof that it happened. There's already proof that people died. There was evidence that people got shot, kids got shot. And the fact that he still went on and said, this is all fake, it's a hoax. Don't fall for it,
Eric, it's no wonder. And again, I don't know what your viewpoint is. I think we may be on the same page. I'm all about gun rights. I mean, gun, control, absolute gun control. I understand you have rights, Second Amendment. I respect that. But some real form of gun control, it's hard to imagine those bills passing or trying to get that done when you have somebody like this going, it was a hoax.
Yeah. But
it only further delays that need.
But like we said earlier, this is all a business. It's a business. The gun control. What's the gun law in Atlanta or in Georgia where you are right now?
Okay, you're asking me to speak on something I'm not 100% on.
That's fine. That's what you think.
There's certain areas where, I mean, you can. I don't know if they've eliminated permit to carry. I think there was talk of that in the state, but you have permit to carry. There are certain townships where you can openly carry, and they do.
But you got to apply for it, right? You got to apply.
That's there. Yes, of course. You have to register. I believe we're at this point, if we're not changing it soon, hopefully at the age of 18. That makes me a little nervous. Makes me a lot of nervous.
To me, that's too young. And this is the point where I'm coming up with that. Yeah.
Well, if we're having, and again, I don't want to get into a battle about 20, if you have to be 21 to consume any type of alcoholic beverage, which I agree with.
Yeah. Totally
agree with. Considering what the repercussions can be if you let that infiltrate all the way down to 18.
Yeah.
If we're having to do that because we're worried about what could happen with excessive consumption of under 21, then why aren't we doing that with weapons?
Yeah. I totally agree.
Let's play devil's. Can I play devil's advocate? Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate in two parts. As a little person, as a human being, as a little person, in The Little Tin Man, and not to push that film or give it a shameless plug.
Great movie.
Oh, thank you. You're too kind. And I didn't ask for that compliment, so thank you. I appreciate it. There's a running joke in there, which is based on reality. When I first started drinking, a couple beers and I was like tipsy, and so imagine you have that concern and worry, that, hey, we're not we don't want to give access to someone to, drink, irresponsibly. And as we're younger, we're more immature, obviously. Hopefully, as we get older, we mature. So let's just say, as an 18-year-old, I have a couple beers that I shouldn't have had because I'm under 21, but I drank them and and I pass out, okay, or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, hear me out. I'm playing devil's advocate, but for a reason. That doesn't necessarily mean, as long as let's say there's a house party, I drink, I pass out. That doesn't necessarily mean I kill anyone.
Yeah.
Hurt myself, stupid, dumb, irresponsible, immature.
We all been there.
An 18-year-old with a weapon?
Yeah. Yeah.
What couldn't they hurt? I mean,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it's funny.
18-year-old with a weapon, and really quickly, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
An 18-year-old with a weapon and my father served in Vietnam. I'm the only little person in my family. I make that point because, I could never be drafted just because of my stature, what have you. My father's 5'9", 5'10". Okay. He was drafted in 1970. He went to Vietnam.
Yeah.
With weapons that were outdated from World War II. They did not have the weapons for a war, mind you, and not promoting war, but they didn't have the weapons for a war that these kids at 18 are able to carry in the streets in our country.
Yeah. And
we're not finding this illogical.
Yeah.
We're not finding this absolutely horrifying. I'm sorry, that's all I'll speak on that. You go.
No. I mean, I totally get what you're saying, and I totally agree 100% with what you're saying. But what I'm going to just reiterate is these kids that were 18 years old or who performed these shootings, I almost guarantee none of them were the party types that would sit there and get drunk. Alcohol is probably one of the last things. And they're probably drinking in the room, doing their own little party. But to me, I think California's gun laws, it's funny about California because our gun laws are so strict when it comes to, we can't open carry. We can't carry. We can get a concealed permit, but you have to go through these steps. And, one of the steps, I live less than 500 feet away from a school. So I'm already disqualified for that. I have a minor that's in the house with me. So that's already disqualified for me to carry it. But then there's other people here outside of California or outside of my city that I'll walk into whatever and I see that they're having the little concealed weapon. And I'm like, to me, that's like, okay, either you're the law or you're just one of those guys that got lucky and got it. But I think the gun control, the gun rights should be limited to, you can have a pistol, which is a pistol. Everybody probably has a pistol, but those big AR-15s, who needs one? And I'm gonna say,
no, I agree.
I'm gonna say, unfortunately, I have one, and the only reason why I have one is because when I worked at a hotel, we worked with one of these guys who was one of those, those guys that were like, you have to get one, you gotta get one, I'll get you. He's one of those guys where 90% of all of us had a gun because of him. I'm in the process of trying to sell mine right now, but it's a process here in California. I got to go to a gun shop that's willing to take my gun, and then they have to process me. And, with me and, being, talking truthful, I don't have a criminal background to where it's going to take, 100 days for me to sell this gun. It's just trying to find the right person who's willing to buy the gun for me. So I'm in the process of doing that. But back then when I bought it, it was easy to get it, 7 days. You buy the gun. Hey, you got 7 days. They do a quick criminal background on you. That's one thing I think if they need to change the law, they need to change the law. You got 50 questions that they ask you. And out of those 50, 20 of them should be repetitive questions. Why do you want a gun? What's the purpose of you having a gun? So by the time it gets to that 50th question, if someone's not in the right mind, they're going to get so annoyed that they probably either won't finish the questions or they're going to answer stupid questions that's going to make whoever's reading that like, hey, this person's not set to have a gun.
And see, that's the other part of that, to tag along with what you're saying, is what really is extremely alarming to me is that there have been, not in every case, I wouldn't be so, ridiculous as to say it's across the board, but there have been a lot of these instances that occur where there were so many red flags
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
up to this point, and yet these people still had weapons.
Yeah.
They still were able to acquire weapons. And people will say, okay, you're not taking the guns from me, you're not taking my weapons from me. I'm not necessarily even, and I'm borrowing this because I thought it was a great statement. I can't remember who said it, so I apologize. But it was, the statement basically said, I'm not asking for your weapons that you have in your home. I'm asking for your compassion and your common sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm asking for you to look at this situation and go, do we need this type of weapon on the streets at all, or in public, access, and then let alone for anyone of 18,
Yeah.
I mean, even with a driver's license, okay, you have tests, you have practice, you take training up to that point. Of course you should. I mean, driver's ed, all of these things. And then when you get the license, and things have changed substantially now. When I was 16, you got the license. It was a temporary, because they had to print it and then mail it to you.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these things went through such a process, and that was to drive a motor vehicle. It wasn't to get a weapon that could mow down dozens of people in a matter of seconds. It's just to drive a car.
Yeah.
Think about getting a hunting license. Think about getting a license to fish. Think about getting, you take a license to become a CPA. You take, all these different certifications that have much more of a strenuous process than a gun.
Yeah. That's the best point I've heard. You definitely need some kind of exam, some kind of, personal history questionnaire that they need to ask. And the only reason why I came up with the number 50 is because a regular person can answer 50 questions with a straight head, straight mind. A person who's out to be malicious and try to kill someone and is trying to buy the gun for that reason, by the time they get to that 50th question, they're going to be so annoyed that they probably won't finish the test.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
A vetting process, if you're of right mind for this weapon, whatever the weapon may be, a longer term vetting process is, to my, and again, I don't want to come off as being obtuse and aloof. Any type of decent vetting process and registration process, if you're in a mind of, I need this weapon, I'm going to do something harmful, and it's a knee-jerk reaction, and I want it now, and it's going to happen now, I can't help but think that a solid, longer, and at the right age, obviously, vetting process could eliminate some of these disasters.
Yeah.
And the idea is, well, it's not going to be across the board. There's no way you can prevent all of that. I'm not disagreeing with that. But God, if we could just prevent one, if we could prevent two, if we could prevent three, if we could prevent half of them that have happened in this year alone, mass shootings, meaning 4 or more individuals in this year alone, if you could stop half of them, wouldn't you go, God, that's got to be better than zero?
I mean, there was a point in our life, and you understand what I'm talking about. There was a point in our life where we were hearing mass shootings every other year. Maybe like every 2 to 3 years, something happened. It was only one a year. And like within the past, 3 years, you're hearing one. And then a month later, you're hearing another one. Then you're hearing another one. It's to a point like these gun owners, these gun companies should realize, hey, what are we doing here? Again, at the end, and it's sad to say, it's all about money. It's all about the business that we make. It's
totally about money.
And this is we'll go back to tobacco. Tobacco never stopped selling cigarettes because it was about money. It was killing people. It was giving them lung cancer, but it was about money.
We're dealing with fossil fuel issues, and clean air and climate change, and, promoting electric vehicles, which I'm all for. There's certain people that don't want fossil fuels to go away because it's about money.
It's money, yeah. I mean, you have all these guys that lives in Texas that's going to lose money if we switched over to electric. And
yeah, it's alarming to think, and I want to, if you don't mind, I want to kind of 180 back to the, what I was starting with, is that it seems like certain individuals can get away with a lot more things.
Yeah.
Because of what they look like, who they are, and money.
And
money's always big.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you can buy yourself, a person, if they have the right amount of money, can buy him or herself out of almost anything.
Yeah.
And yet there are certain people that, could be, okay, a slight infraction.
Yeah.
It's still an infraction, but they throw the book at them, and now they're dealing with, we talked about, Brittany
yeah.
in Russian, 9.5 years, and yet there was a similar instance, and it was a small pay fine and hand slapped and move on.
Yeah.
Why are we still along this? Because of money. It's all about money.
And Russia's not stupid. Russia knows. I mean, Brittany, this whole thing happened right. I think it happened right during or right when the war was starting over there, right? That's when the whole.
But it was. I'm not exactly, and I'd have to do the research because I don't want to speak out of turn, but very close to when the Russia started. Yeah.
So for that to happen, and Russia already knew that America was going to be involved and going to help out Ukraine. Then you just happen to have this one American who just didn't realize she had her CBD oil with her, and Russia's like, nope, sorry, that's not allowed here. So what do? She's unfortunately made an example.
And look at what you just said, Eric.
Yeah,
CBD oil. Not a bunch of illegal weapons.
Yeah.
Not a bunch of cocaine or heroin or whatever, or infiltrating children or sex trafficking or child, whatever, which I'm huge. I'm very big on promotion and protection of children, because I think we overlook that way too much, and things that have happened to children so horribly. And yet, it happens in certain organized religions. It happens in certain, organizations, and we're supposed to ignore that, which I find absolutely, just asinine. And yet, CBD oil.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all it was.
Did she deal it? Did she sell it?
Nope.
No.
It was in her little. It was like
0.75 milliliters or something, whatever.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know the exact numbers, but again, did she hurt anybody with it? Was she under the influence with it and then got a gun and then mowed down 20 people?
Yeah.
No. I believe she was over there because what she does is a profession.
Yeah.
Which is basketball.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off that.
She uses it for anxiety, if I'm not mistaken. And again, act is an act. She had it. Yeah. There's a disciplinary response to that. Okay. It's all money in politics. 9.5 years.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
But here's where we're gonna go with. We started the story.
Go.
We started the story about males and females and the difference between males and females, where these female basketball players don't make enough money playing here in America that they have to find another income to help just do what they want to do. So she goes to Russia and she plays for a Russian team out there during the off season. And she turned this Russian team around. I mean, she should be a goddess out there for what she did to this team. She took this team from the lowest rank basketball team in Russia to the top 3 teams in Russia. So like I said, she should be looked at as, wow, you did this for our team and you're not even Russian, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that she had to go there to make extra income and to make extra money just so she can support whatever she wants to do here in America, to me, it's like if the businesses here, the WNBA businesses here, pays the females what the male players are making, or even close to that. I'm not saying pay her the LeBron James money, but pay her what the weakest NBA player here is making, then maybe they wouldn't have to do go across
Yeah,
overseas.
it would be. Well,
and do all
I
that.
hear what you're saying. I can, yeah, I understand it, and bear with me. I'm paraphrasing. The idea that if your career was sufficient enough, okay, obviously she's not going to make. There's supply and demand.
Yeah.
Every business is in that same model. Okay, I get that. WNBA does not draw what the NBA does for whatever many reasons, so be it. But the idea of also that you are hired in that organization, and yet it's not sufficient enough that you are now going to go play in another country, and in order to keep your salary where you want it to be, and then lo and behold, you do that again. She wasn't getting on a plane and going over there to mow people down or do something heinous. She was going to add income to what she does for a living, and I believe it's CBD for anxiety. And
but again,
wow,
it happened. Wow. It happened during when the whole war was starting.
Yeah, and there's definitely political.
There's political parties.
Political statements being made by this.
Yeah,
the fact that she was sentenced to 9.5 years, no one's going to tell me that wasn't a political to extend. And I'll say this politely, and unfortunately, Ms. Griner is the brunt of this.
Yeah,
but basically to extend a middle finger to whether it be the U.S. and say, hey, we're gonna make a an example of this. No matter how ridiculous it is, but we're gonna make an example of it.
Yeah. And Russia right now has the ball. I mean, the U.S. a couple of weeks ago, they were willing to trade that arms dealer that we have here in America for her. So with the Russia giving her 9 years, again, they have the balls on their court. They can do whatever they want right now. The U.S. is either going to be like, hey, Brittany, sorry, you got to wait the 9 years. Maybe they'll let you go in 7. We can do what we're, exchange for someone. I mean, it's all political. And that's the sad part about the whole thing. She didn't kill anyone. She wasn't going out there to try to sell the drug. She wasn't doing all that. And, it's like some people's like, is CBD oil even a drug? It's not.
Well, and that's the other thing. Yeah. That's the other thing. I mean, we're sitting here, you and I are talking about this, and what it boils down to, or what I think it should be boiled down to, is human rights.
Yeah.
And her human rights are not being, again, if she was doing anything that harmed other people, if she came into that country to try to, form a coup and overthrow their government, we're talking a really different ballgame.
Yeah,
and no pun intended with ball game, but she's going there to play basketball.
Yeah.
And again, not heroin, not cocaine. She's got CBD oil, and yes, I understand laws are rules, and rules are rules, whatever. The amount we have to start being more, and we should be objective. And I'll say this, and I'm going to take a second, so I say it the way I hope it comes out. We should be objective with what people deserve for human rights. We should be subjective when it comes to individual cases where you cannot, it's like I said about Roe v. Wade. You cannot say blanket across the board that every case is the same case.
Yeah.
That's why we should have the right to choose for ourselves, or especially females have the right to choose for themselves.
Yeah.
Every case is unique. Okay? So you can't sit there and blanket across. Murder is murder. If it's malicious and intentional, there's 3 degrees of it, and that's murder.
Yeah.
Then you can say, okay, you shot somebody in cold blood or whatever, first, second, or third degree. That's obviously a malicious act.
Yeah.
Then you can go across the board with it. Okay? Fine. But if you're sitting there with a situation like this where you're going, well, this is the rule, it's obviously political. It's obvious to make a statement. It's obvious to say, hey, here's what we think of you. We're going to make a scapegoat out of your citizen.
Yeah.
And
they have. I mean, unfortunately,
super ridiculous.
We sit here, but it's going to make these athletes, because this isn't the first time we've heard athletes go into other countries with illegal drugs or illegal whatever, there's bigger name athletes that was caught, but the good side of this, and I don't know if there is a good side, but the good side of it is these athletes are going to think twice now before they go anywhere, whether it's foreign or domestic, before they can say, you know what, I better not do this, because, they
Let's go
might,
one
you
step
know,
further, though, really quickly about that, though, Eric. Let's just say let's say I'm, a traveling athlete, what have you. And let's just say that I know it's very like hypothetical, but we're going to, push the boundaries. Let's say I have type 2 diabetes, and in certain countries, a certain amount of insulin is considered too much, She
yeah,
has anxiety, which I believe that was actually prescribed. Again, I'm not going to say
yeah,
that I know this 100%. I've read certain things. Okay. She's not bringing, like I said before, hard substances in to that country.
yeah,
She's not dealing them. She's not, you can have certain cough medicines that have codeine in them.
yeah,
And codeine is considered, illegal in certain areas, or hydrocodone.
yeah.
Okay. Again, but this is even beyond that. This is definitely, without a question, a political
Oh, it's,
statement saying,
yeah, definitely.
and this is unfortunate that she's, dealing with that. That's ridiculous. And again, I'll loop it, because we're coming to the end of this. I'll loop it back to the idea of, as a little person, when you're sitting there trying to prove yourself and just be considered a human, and no one's going to tell me that this isn't somewhat of a racial thing as well, because again, they had somebody else have that same infraction in Russia, and it was a minor fine and move about your business. Now Miss Griner's sitting there with 9.5-year sentence.
Yeah, she's female.
How can we be so bigoted? How can we be so skeptical and judgmental? And it does have something to do with who she is and her color, whatever. They're making a game of it.
Yeah,
they're making a scapegoat of it, and it's hideous. And so it's whether it be the U.S., whether it be Russia, whether it be whatever country, we're definitely, we don't have equal rights. That doesn't exist.
How disturbing would this be to you? Somebody brought this up to me at work. We're talking about the whole same situation where someone said, I guaranteed somebody in the United States already spoke to a representative in Russia and tried to make deals to get her out. But that one individual in Russia said, you know what? Keep her, let her learn her lesson, and then we'll figure out what to do later on. So
my gut instinct is, definitely it's being made example. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts without naming names or not naming names. She's being used as to make an example. She's being used as if to go, see, don't do that. Here's what we do to you.
Yep. And that's the sad part, is you have an American there and the American here who's trying to save her, but not really saving her, because it's more like, hey, she did this on her own. Let's let her sweat this out. So it's sad. It's sad, because any other person, like you said, any other color, any other sexuality, it'll probably be a different story. If it was a different country, it'd probably be a different story,
Absolutely.
But the fact that it was Russia, if she
look at these political powerhouses and what they've been butting heads with for how long.
Yeah.
She's definitely an example.
Yeah. I guess luckily it's Russia and not China or North Korea, because that'd be a totally different story there. But
who knows where that would be.
But it comes down to what we started with, what we talked about in the beginning, is accountability. You got to hold yourself to accountability when it comes to certain things.
Certain people get held at a much higher accountability level because of prejudice, because of stereotypes, because of discrimination, because of all the different adjectives and what have you, and yet there are certain people that can get away with almost anything.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, as an actor,
status and their power and their money.
As an actor, have you ever heard any of your fellow colleagues ever say to you, or ever tell someone else, do you know who I am?
As an actor, yes, I have heard that. I'm not going to name names, but yes, I've heard that. Absolutely. I've heard that. What's crazy, Eric, is I've heard it on a pretty grand scale, where it was like a to upper B lister. Yeah. So lower A, upper B lister. That was one. Which no matter what level you think you are or feel you are in this or hierarchy of entertainment world. I think that's so ludicrous when I hear that. I also heard it on, it was local, and it was a person who was trying to get into a party, so many head count party, and said that, and it was like, do you know who I am? And I'm like, do you know who you are? Because it's not like you're God. So I don't know why you're painting it that everybody should just bow down for you to walk in here. But yeah, it blows me away when people act like that, no matter what you've accomplished. Truthfully, I have seen, hang on a second.
It's funny I mentioned that to you only because we have a local thing going around right now, and the video is going viral, where we have a certain representative here in San Francisco who's trying to get into a restaurant. This restaurant is 100% booked, can't get you a table, and they accommodated this person by saying, if you come back in an hour, we can make room for you. And then this person says,
right
on the video, do you know who I am? So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, why are you using your power for?
Wow.
Yeah.
The crazy thing about that is I've seen people that are literally been around them and they're of that level, but never act like that.
Yeah.
Are some of the most humble people on the planet. They would never put that out there because that's just not who they are.
Yeah.
And so when you see that happen, it's really kind of a bitter taste in your mouth of, hey, we look like schmucks, and we all represent each other in this industry, and we all have something to stand up for and prove.
Yeah.
And so when somebody acts like that, it's like really embarrassing.
Yeah, it's one of those really things horrific. Like, God, this is how you are. But this has been fun. We definitely we've definitely touched a lot of nerves. And it's just but it's one of those things where this podcast is, we're telling you how we feel. We're telling you how we feel about certain situations. It is the Diary of the Little Man's podcast, and we do have a lot of issues that we have to deal with, whether it's political or whether it's just driving across the country. And I'm glad you made it safe. The last time we spoke, you were in Iowa. So glad you made it back.
Yes, we're back. I'm in Georgia. I've been back for a while. Plenty is going on in between that time and this time.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but I do thank you. It was great to get back on the podcast and do the show again.
We'll be back on a weekly
we'll be back next week. Can we do next week?
We can do next week. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. You guys have any questions, go ahead and reach us at the Diary of the Little Man's podcast at gmail.com, or follow us on our Instagram page. Until next week, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching on YouTube.
Thank you.
Until next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great week, everyone.
Take care. You've been listening to the Diary of the Little Man's podcast.